Well, hello, viewers, listeners, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. We welcome you here today for just talking about Jesus. I have Angie Clayton with me. Hi, Angie.
Hi, Jan.
And Ruth Cowles, who I had interviewed before on a couple different topics, whatever. But today we're going to just have a conversation for just let's talk about it, about being chosen and what that means. And it might be a little bit of a paradigm shift from what you're thinking or have thought about being chosen before. I'm gonna let Angie open up because she's compiled a book of stories of people who have been chosen for different things. And let's start with you.
Okay, thanks, Jan. Well, the full title of the book is Chosen: Sacred Journeys with a Faithful God. So I think there's 20 or 21 stories in there. They're all different. Some of them are big, some of them are really small, but every single one's chosen story that matters and that is going to resonate with other people. And what started it is I just realized, that we all have stories to tell,
Mm.
right? We do. We all have stories to tell. And it's not it's for the reader or the listener, but it's also for us. They learn from us. We heal in the telling often. But what prevents us from telling those stories? Sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's guilt or shame or whatever. Those are hard things to get past, but we have to recognize that there's people that need to hear from us.
Mm.
And so anyway, that's kind of the thought behind the book. But for me personally, why this is even important is because I have had quite a chronic health journey, and a couple of years into it, and my husband gets a credit here. He made me realize that I was projecting every single doctor's appointment, test, everything out into the worst possible case scenario every single time. And so I was living in this state of heightened anxiety, and I was praying and journaling one morning, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks, the combination of several scriptures, Psalm 139, where it says that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And these are familiar scriptures, but taken together, Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, for plans for good and not for disaster, right? Okay, well, how's that working in my life right now? I'm not seeing any of that. And so then I had a few chosen verses come in front of me, especially John 15:16, I think, where it says, "You didn't choose me, I chose you."
Mhm.
Okay, so all of those together made me think that if I believe that those scriptures are true, and I do, I believe everything in the Bible is true, then I have to believe that I was chosen for this life. I was chosen by God for this life and for this thing, whatever it is, for this health journey is what made me realize it. And there was something about that that just changed everything. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. If God has chosen me for this, what am I going to do with it? Am I going to wear it well? Am I going to use it to feel sorry for myself? Or is there a way to glorify him in this? And so, is my health any better? No, it's actually worse. But is my attitude different? 100%.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It just, when you look at things that way, it just kind of like, okay. And I think it's surrendering, right?
It is.
Absolutely. Surrendering to whatever it is he's got you in for the moment or the time or
That's right. Because, he can't, it's hard to hold hands with a clenched fist, right? Have you ever heard that? But if I don't let go of it, if I don't, I have to have my hands open, right, to receive from him what he's giving me or, telling me or any of that. And if I'm so focused on what my hard, bad thing is, I never hear any of that.
right, right, right. Yeah,
So,
because all of those things cause you to be looking up at him, right?
right, exactly. And it really helped me not to be doubting and wondering so much, what is the point of all this? You know what? The point is the refiner's fire, and that's what purifies us, right? That's what makes us holier. and holier. And so let it burn.
Hmm.
That's what I say. Let it burn.
Ruth, you have a story in her book as well. You want to share that?
Well, I do, and I actually have two in there, and I wasn't sure which one I was going to talk about, but the one story is about submission, and that seems to be like a hated word. People don't like that. I didn't like that. Nobody likes that. Chosen to submit, it's called. And the thing is, what if you're called to submit to someone? In this case, it was to my husband, but what if you're both right? You
Mhm.
know, and it was a really tough situation. I mean, we were at loggerheads, I guess, over a decision to make. It's actually, I fell in love with a little girl that needed a home, and I wanted to adopt her, and he wasn't ready. He didn't. Our children were almost all grown, and it just so we had to sort this out between us. And I mean, I could use scripture to support my idea. I could scripturally support,
Mhm.
caring for the orphans, and but he could also scripturally support his viewpoint. And so even we didn't really battle over it, but it was just such a painful experience to
Yeah.
walk through because I felt like we were both right. Yes,
Mhm.
he's right, but yes, I'm right too. So what do you
Mhm.
do in those kind of situations when uh, when you want to have control of a situation? Isn't that a problem with us sometimes? We want to control the situation.
Mhm.
And yet the reality is we're never really in control. I mean, anyway. So it was a hard, hard lesson for me. I believe God allowed this situation in our lives so that I could really fully, this is going to sound terrible, but I love my husband, but this really fully made me trust his decision, trust that his decision was okay. And yeah, and it's not something that I would have chosen. I would not
Mhm.
have chosen this situation to be like this. But it really, rather than making us uh, pull apart, it actually pulled us together. It drove us together in a really wonderful, wonderful way. I mean, we've been married over 50 years, and it's astonishing, really, what that did in our marriage. Um, so that's that's my submission story. But there's this wonderful verse in Ephesians 5, verses 20 and 21 that go, and give thanks for everything to God the Father. And some things we don't want to give thanks for
That's
because
right.
they're painful. We don't like them too much. But and give thanks for everything to God the Father in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, and further submit to one another
Mhm. Mhm.
submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. And so in submitting to one another, sometimes, you do it does go your way because you're
Mhm.
submitting to one another. And
Right.
sometimes it goes the other person's way. But when you work together, you're working together in submission to one another,
Mhm.
it just makes a huge difference, really, in your life going on. And we're submitting to Christ, right? We need to submit to Christ. And you can both pray about a situation, and I don't think God gives us different answers. If it's the same God, if we're praying to the same God about a situation, He's not going to tell my husband one thing and me something else, is He?
No.
And so this whole situation of submission, I just, yeah, it was an important lesson for me. Probably the hardest lesson in our marriage that was so impactful.
And I'm so glad I'm going to jump in here, Jan, but I'm so glad to include the story because you're right. Submission is a dirty word, and there's so much beauty in it. And you bring that out so well.
Oh,
Out of
thank
the
you.
heart. I mean, it was the hardest thing that brought out the beauty of that submission.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
and Ruth, did you ever, excuse me, find out what happened to the little girl?
I did, and that's what's so beautiful. Beautiful how this turned out because She had been in that place for 7 months and had never, ever been taken out on a home visit to anywhere. And until we took her home with us. And she spent a couple months with us. And I just fell in love. Our whole family just fell in love. Um, but when I took her back, it was such a grievous thing, so painful. But anyway, when I took her back, um, and I felt like, I don't know, I just felt like I failed somehow. But what happened is I wanted to go back and see her again later, and I called the place up, and they said, well, she's been adopted.
Oh,
And not only had she been adopted, but the young couple couldn't have children. The young couple who had adopted her had also adopted another little boy to raise them as siblings. And it was just, God firmly shut the door on
mhm.
us adopting that child, which that was important to me because I would have struggled knowing that she was still there with no parents.
Right.
But it happened so quickly, it had to be God.
Yeah.
It's amazing, amazing way he worked.
And that's how
And
that
what?
whole being able to, I mean, it's grace that God would show that to you because, he is
Yes,
always working in the background whether you see it or not.
yes,
And it's like sometimes we think we're going to be the only one that's going to save the day,
yes,
when God had somebody else in mind, which is
Yes.
why
yes,
he told your husband no.
yes,
Well,
exactly.
and sometimes don't we feel like we must have heard him wrong? How can it be that we're not agreeing on this? I must have heard him wrong, or my husband heard him wrong, or something. And no, that's really not true. And he uses this stuff in our marriages, in our personal lives, in our ministry. Yeah, and it's something that you're just marching through it and keeping your head above water as best as
Right.
you can. And until it's in the rearview mirror, you can't see it for what it was. And Ruth, that is a perfect example of you thought that maybe was going to be a forever thing, and you were just a pit stop.
There
That's
you
all
go.
God ever meant it to be, was a pit
Yes,
stop. But it was an
apparently so.
important one. It was important.
Apparently so. Apparently it was a pit stop. I
Yeah,
didn't think it was, but apparently it was.
I
But
know.
it
I
was
get
such
it.
a gift. I think it was a gift from God that I did get to find out that she was adopted so quickly into this home that just really wanted children, and that she would have a little brother, that they would and I God didn't have to let me know that,
No.
No.
you know. But it was beautiful really how it all turned out. And yeah, it was a struggle, but it I wouldn't change it. Looking back, I'm glad we went through that. I really am glad we went through that.
And then has that changed I mean, it changed your marriage for one, but has it changed your perspective on other situations that have come up?
Well, I think that we do much better about making decisions together now. To be willing to, I mean, I was younger, I mean, life teaches you some things as you go along, but I think it now I feel like we're more a team, that we make decisions together. We're more considerate of the other person, what they feel, what they think, how they feel about situations. We're not going to think the same. We're different people,
Yeah.
and so I think it was healthy for us. And it's just been great going forward.
Yeah.
So thanks for asking that.
Well, it's an interesting story because that actually happened to us as well. My husband is a CASA, court appointed special advocate, and he had a little boy that he just fell in love with, and worked with him for 4 years to where he was at a point to be adopted out. And he came home one day and he says, "So, what would you think?" And I just went, "Absolutely not." It's just like, at this point in my life, I mean, I've raised 10 kids and I know what happens when he's got this idea of roses and everything else. And this was a hard kid. This is a kid that's throwing chairs across the room and breaking things and,
Oh, wow.
lots of emotional damage that had happened.
Uh-huh.
And it's just like, I think I put my time in, and and in this case, fortunately, that's but he ended
That,
his aunt and uncle ended up adopting him, and it's the
Great.
one most wonderful thing. They didn't have any other kids and could totally devote their time to him. And he's 16 now, and it's just like,
Wow.
and
It's
life
cool.
is good for him. It's just so,
He's
Great. It's great.
thank you,
So
Jesus.
how would you guys say you both have similar experiences? How did you get through that and avoid resentment, right? Or in your case, Jan, it would have been resentment maybe coming from your husband.
Hmm. Yeah.
How is that avoided?
And I think maybe he did. I mean, it wasn't anything he talked to me about, whatever, but when he's been able to see it, and he's still able to keep contact with him, and whatever, he's gone to visit him in Spokane, and it's been um, he's been able to see that God had a plan for him, and it was the right plan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
Good. Good. And we actually talked about that, and we came to a point where, and I tell him the story, we came to a point where he said she can stay. And we came to this same point. We came to a different point, but at the exact same moment when I said she could go and he said she could stay. And his fear was that the family would resent him if he said no.
Mm-hmm.
And that for the rest of his life, our life together, I would hold that against him. I would resent him for that. And of course, I came to that decision too, that like, I don't want to bring a child into the family if he's going to resent her being there,
Hmm.
And so it just, we talked about it. We had to talk about it. I mean, I can still see us, tears. Well, I'm like, no, she can go. No, she can stay. No, she can go. So it was one of those kind of moments where, okay, we have to trust God in this. We have to trust God in this, not just for her and her future going forward, but for us and our future going forward as a family, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, I can honestly say there is no resentment. There was no resentment. It was hard,
Right,
but
right.
but we came away from it healthy.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. As only God can do, right?
Amen. Yeah, that's so true.
So it's not a dirty word at all. It's a
No, I
beautiful
don't think
word.
it is a beautiful word, and I
Mhm.
just yeah, it's a beautiful word. But
Hmm.
we can't allow that resentment. If that resentment crops in, oh, that can be devastating, really,
Yeah.
So,
Well, it can even be resentment. I mean, yeah, in this case, it's against your husband, but it can also be against God. It's
oh,
like,
absolutely.
why are you letting this happen to me? This is
Yes.
like
Mhm.
absolutely why, one day after another. Why? You know?
Right. Right.
Well, in your title, Ruth, chosen to submit. Yeah, you had to submit to your husband, but really, you mostly had to submit to God.
Yeah, but I thought I was.
I know.
That's the thing. I thought I
It's
was.
hard.
That's why I say, what do you do when you're both right? You
Hmm.
know, at least you think you're both right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Well, my story was a little different that I included in there. There was when I started into college, I was 18, and uh, taking a French class, which I absolutely loved. It was just I liked the language I liked languages anyway. So high school, I took both Spanish and French, and it just worked for me, whatever. So when I got to do that in college, I had applied for a ceramics school in France and was looking forward to going to that, using my language and being able to have that adventure with that. Um, but one day after class, my professor had asked me if I would want to help with his Boy Scouts, with his son's Boy Scout troop that was meeting at his house. And I was sure, why not? I like kids, whatever. So I went and I did that, and it was, it was fun. His wife was there. Everything was, wild and crazy, whatever. So I went back again another week to do that, but his wife was not there that time. And I'm cleaning up dishes after the kids have gone, and I think his son must have gone to a friend's house or something. I can't remember that part exactly, but he wasn't there. It was just the two of us. And he comes up behind me, while I'm doing the dishes and puts his hands on my shoulders and tells me that he thinks about me all the time. It's like,
Mm.
okay, what does that exactly mean? This is not weird, right? And then, he starts playing with my hair and doing, and the next thing I know, he's got me in the bedroom and
Mm.
having his way. So it was like
I'm sorry.
super like, okay. And this was like, at a time there's not social media and there's nobody saying anything about rape or about any,
Hmm.
it's like, well, it must be my fault because of whatever. I don't know, but I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to, I should have just said something to my mom or, said something,
People.
but we were also taught to respect our elders and our teachers and all of that. And so it was kind of like, okay, this is not right, but this is still is like, okay, where's that balance of things,
Hmm.
And so then another time, this is in Arizona, ended up in the desert and with a picnic, which the same thing. And after I left that, I was just like bawling the whole time, like, okay, this is like, I need to get out of this. This is not, and feeling guilty, his wife doesn't know. Why am I, it's like I'm playing into this, but not because I wanted to, and all of this. But so fast forward all of these years after years, after talking to God about it, asking forgiveness, doing, all of those things, but always would feeling unworthy, just
Mm.
like whenever I tried to pray, it was just always a thing, blocking in there that it's just, and I was never sure exactly what that was about, because, years later you kind of stuff it and you're not thinking about it anymore or do anything. But then my daughter begged me to go on a mission trip to Peru. And like 300 teenagers and crazy stuff, whatever, but wild worship. It was really, really good worship time. And one of the nights during worship, and it wasn't any this particular song or anything that was said or whatever, but right in the middle of that worship, I had this just vision of Jesus just standing massively tall and me standing off to the side. But this man is on his hands and knees, and God is, telling him to be gone and,
Mm.
you know, leave and whatever, and then embracing me
Mm.
and just vindicating me,
Yeah.
at that point. And that was, it's like, why did that take so many years? It's like
Well,
40.
you probably didn't know you needed it.
I didn't know why I needed it, whatever. But at any rate, it's God's timing and His way. But just that healing presence of like,
Mm.
the
Yeah.
of
So
yeah.
how are you different? How are you different before and after that? And for in terms of how you felt about yourself?
Oh, absolutely different. I mean, it's just like just 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 that overwhelming love
Mm.
of, me and Jesus and wrapping his arms around me and just like,
Mm.
letting me know that it's like, no, it was not me. And it wasn't, and he doesn't love me any less than he ever did,
Mhm.
and there wasn't any reason. It's just like it just melted away, so
That's one of the best beauty for ashes story I've ever heard. Where it's
Really
somebody, I didn't
good.
write this one down. Where's that? I don't know what the reference is, Jen. I'm sure you can find it. But we hear that verse about, God giving, making beauty out of ashes. And that's not how that verse goes. That verse is that he gives beauty for ashes. It's an exchange, right?
Mhm.
And so nothing grows out of ashes, but he can take them away and give you something beautiful in
Yeah,
return. It seems like that's what happened.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
That's it. Yeah.
So Angie, you probably have 500 chosen stories of your own. where to start, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm going to piggyback off you guys. Let's just keep this babies and children and whatever and submission theme going because I have a story of that too. And I didn't really expect that we were going to be talking about this today, but it seems like I need to. Greg and I were foster parents for a good while, and we had some lovely, wonderful children that came through our home during those years. And we really believed that the Lord was calling us together. We believed that the Lord was calling us to adopt some kids from the foster care system. So we pursued it, and we really thought we were doing what God wanted us to do. I mean, we felt that from the very beginning, and so we brought two little kiddos home. They were aged 2 and 3 when we got them. And came out of the foster care system. We were still foster parents, but it was a foster to adopt situation at that point. We got them in September. This has been a long time ago now, but we got them in September and quickly discovered that there was a lot of information that wasn't given to us about the trauma situation that they had come from, which was just horrific. I've never heard anything like it before since. And but also about the problems that these kiddos had because of the horrible situation that they came out of. I mean, these were some traumatized, broken children, and we didn't have skills for that. We didn't know how to, excuse me, I'm sorry. We didn't know what to do with that. We're not psychologists or any of that kind of stuff. And it was there were siblings, and the little girl was delayed, but she was in pretty good shape. But the little boy, the youngest one, he was 2 years old, and he destroyed my house. He punched holes in the walls. I had bruises all over me, kicked, punched, bit. We woke the last straw, I think, and we had him. I'm telling you guys, we had him to doctors, psychologists. They diagnosed him bipolar, but you can't medicate a 3-year-old, obviously. But I would spend hours every day restraining this poor baby because he just couldn't get a grip on himself. And so I was at the end of my rope. And one morning we heard Kiki, the little girl, crying. And I got up, and thank goodness that we were on the same floor, our bedroom was. And I went in there, and Taryn was sitting on top of her, choking her. And so that was the last thing that happened before Greg said to me, "I'm calling children's services today. We can't. We're going to have to send them back," basically. And I knew he was right. But I was devastated. And who was talking about failure? Somebody was talking here about failure. Ooh, man, I felt guilty. I felt like I was a liar, because I told these kids this is your forever home. I mean, yeah, and our whole future, right? Greg's and my future was now planned based on raising these babies. So when they went home, they came and got them in a van, and they took them away, and I never saw them again. And that was a death. That was like a death to us. And I remember a couple of things of finding a random stray sock in the dryer after they left. And the other thing was I opened up the silverware drawer, and there was too many spoons because these kids, yeah, we didn't have enough spoons. So we bought just spoons extra because of them. And so anyway, I opened up the drawer, and there was too many spoons. And so that's the kind of stuff that just destroys you, right?
Right.
Here was my biggest thing, though. Did I hear God wrong? Did we hear God wrong? We were so sure. And how could it have turned out so bad when we were so sure? And it was years. I didn't get to know this for years, but it turned out, okay, in Kansas, they won't separate siblings until there's been 2 failed adoptions or 2, disrupted adoptions. Okay, so we were the first one. And so then they went together to another foster home, and that family actually got brought up on child abuse charges against the little boy. Okay, I get it. I understand how that could have happened. It could have been something misinterpreted very easily with him.
Sure.
And so, but that just broke me too. And we had tried to keep the little girl, but they wouldn't let us keep her unless we kept him too.
Mm.
So anyway, now we have two failed adoptions, and they did split them up.
Hmm.
Here's the beautiful part of the story is that Kiki, the little girl, went back to her former foster mother who adored her. It was a mutual admiration society. Cindy was her name, but she couldn't handle both, and they wouldn't let her have just Kiki way back when. And so that's where she went. And then Taryn was actually adopted by his special needs teacher.
No kidding.
I mean, Ruth, we have the same story,
That's
basically.
fabulous.
And I didn't get to find it out for a very long time, but that's why I said that to you, because finally we realized we did not hear him wrong. It was just that we didn't get it.
Yeah.
We didn't
Yeah.
understand what we did exactly what he told us to do. It just didn't end up looking the way that we thought it would.
Yeah. Well, talk about a pit stop, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a pit stop. That's right. And you know what? We were chosen for that. It was horrible.
Yeah.
It was like one of the most painful things. It's also like you, Ruth, it's one of the things that bonded my husband and I together in a way that we had not been before.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we were chosen for that for a lot of reasons. And
Yeah.
I wish we didn't have to go through it, but well, I know I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade it. I would do it again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a really long version of one of my stories, Jan.
Well, nothing's ever wasted, right? Things that God allows, things that happen in our lives, it's never wasted. If we are
That's right.
just open to Him, if we submit to what He's allowing in our life, whether
Yeah.
sometimes it's our own decisions, right, that bring these things into our life, but He
Yeah.
always can bring us through it in victory, and He can always teach us something in it,
That's right.
through it, if we'll listen, if we'll pay attention.
Well, and this idea of being chosen and submitting to God are all is hand in hand, right? Is part and parcel because um to really submit to him, you have to believe that he chose you for this stuff. And that can be a
Hmm.
hard thing to swallow. Really, God, you chose me to be this sick, or you chose me to lose a child, or you chose me to be raped. I mean, really? So you got to fight your way through that
Yeah.
stuff. Do I believe that God is God? Do I believe everything my Bible says about God? And I do. And so I had to make choices about whether I would allow myself to look at this stuff as being chosen rather than being hated or being, all those things. Because when bad things pile up on top of each other, you start to wonder after a
Yeah.
while. I don't wonder anymore. I'm just like, here's my life motto now. Oh, so we're doing this now. It truly is. It truly is. Do I get it right all the time? Heck no, I don't. Am I better than I used to be? I think so. And this whole idea is of being chosen is something that it obviously it just really rocked me.
Mm.
The thing that happens as well is that maybe it wasn't about you.
Right.
Maybe it was about Kiki. Maybe it
It
was
was.
about what they gained from being in your life to
Yeah.
have them ready or the timing ready for something else to happen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if
For
nothing
them,
else, we loved them. We loved them so hard while we had them,
sure.
that little bit of time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So let's just, without going deep into it, but let's just list off some things that people could be chosen for. Maybe
Mm.
you have estranged kids. Maybe you have a death. Maybe you're blamed for something that you shouldn't have been,
Mm.
you know.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Broken
Hmm.
relationships, that can be so
Yeah.
hard, you
Chosen to
know.
be wounded, really? That's a hard one, isn't it, guys?
Yeah. Or rejected.
Or
Yeah.
rejected, yeah. And I've got a story of that too. And actually it's an adoption story, and God has adopted us. We are adopted. And
Yes.
don't you have to be chosen before you're
Yep.
adopted? I am adopted, and I know my parents went to Omaha, Nebraska and chose me. They said, yes, we'll take her.
mm,
She's available. We'll go ahead and take her. They picked me. Okay, well, that's what God has done as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And unlike God, my parents didn't get everything right, but he's the perfect parent to
Yeah.
us. And so we got to make sure our filter's right. I think that's what it boils down to. We got to make sure that we're filtering these things through the lens of our faith and through the reality of Jesus and who he is and what he's done. Because you know what? Most of the stuff that we're talking about that I'm saying we're chosen for makes no sense unless you know Jesus. You don't get through stuff like this and not only survive, but thrive without Jesus.
That's true. That's so true. When we were talking about being chosen, I was thinking about Moses, when God called Moses at the burning bush, when God told Moses, I've seen, I've heard the distress, and I'm concerned and I've come down and I'm going to send you. And
Mm.
so he chose Moses for that. But the neat thing about that is, of course, Moses had all the arguments, right, about
Yeah,
why he couldn't do it. But the big thing that really hit me is that when God chooses, he enables. And
that's
in
right.
Exodus chapter 3 and verse 12, God said, "Certainly I will be with you."
Mm.
Despite your fear, despite your feeling inadequate, whatever, I will be with you. And for us, is that not
Amen.
enough to know
Yes.
that he will be with us
Yes.
for
And
whatever?
what was the ultimate chosen was Jesus to the cross.
Absolutely.
Was that any fun?
No,
I don't
no,
think
and you
so.
know what? How many times I would like to know how many times it says, "Do not fear, do not be afraid."
A
How many
lot.
times we're told that? So many times,
Yeah.
so many times. So that's two things that tells me that our human nature defaults to fear,
Yes.
but there's not a reason to fear. We, as believers in Jesus, have no reason to fear. Do we like all the things? No.
Hmm.
But do we have to live in fear? No.
But don't you think the big picture is that God knows us intimately, that he knows,
Absolutely.
and
Mhm.
our heart's desire is to be close to him. And so what
Absolutely.
happens? He chooses us for specific situations in our life that are going to bring us closer to him.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we tend to think of a lot of times when I first started talking to people about this, what are you chosen for? They're like, oh, I'm not chosen for anything. I don't have any, nothing that I do matters. And so they were thinking in terms of these big, huge, I was chosen to be a speaker in front of 5,000 people, or I was chosen to speak the gospel in Asia or whatever, and some of the stories are like that. Most of them are not. Okay, yeah, those people are chosen for that big stuff. You and I probably aren't chosen for that kind of a thing. But that doesn't mean we're not chosen for what God chose us for. No, that makes sense? No. You know what I mean? It's not going to look the same for all of us. And there's a story in there about a gal who bakes bread and delivers it to her fire station almost every day. They have no idea why she's doing it. She has a reason for it, but she's just serving them. And so her story is called Her Daily Bread.
I
And
like it.
she feels like she was chosen to do that.
Mhm.
So anyway, there's a teaser. It's a good story to read. They're all so good. You guys are all different. And I'm so grateful to all the different people who are contributed. There's six authors from 6 countries
Wow.
that have contributed to this book, which I love. And
I love that too. It's
just
great.
very precious, brave people that have, like you guys, that have shared some of your hardest things so that we can learn from you.
Mhm.
Mm.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, Angie, thank you. This has been a good talk, a good conversation with this, and I think maybe that idea of chosen will be spread around as a new idea, to think and have the perspective of what we're going through really truly is bring us to be something that God has a purpose in that particular thing.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
like you said, it's like, okay, bring it on. What else is going to happen? Because
that's right.
what else are you
Bring
choosing
on the
for?
fire. I mean, you hate to say that, but really.
Right, right. So close to finishing your book, and look forward to having it out there. And I will let everyone know when it is available and where and how to get your copy.
Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Great.
Thanks for having us today.
Ah,
Yeah, thank you. This was
thank you
fun.
for joining.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.